Good evening, and welcome back to the Poe Museum. How would you like to sit down to dinner with Edgar Allan Poe? Well, we're going to bring you the next best thing on tonight's installment of the Curator's Crypt. Sure, we have lots of glasses and decanters and bottles and china from Poe's childhood homes where he lived with the Allens. We even have lots of spoons from Poe's sister's house, Duncan Lodge, where he was a frequent guest. So it's likely that Poe used any number of these pieces. In fact, we have so many spoons that if you'd like to see a whole video just about Poe-related spoons, let us know down in the comments. But we can do even better. We have something from a place Poe lived at the height of his career with his wife and his mother-in-law. Now his dining table is unlocated, probably lost forever. His plates, his dishes, they're all gone. Somebody did write me to say that they have Poe's spoon, but they're not interested in donating it to the Poe Museum just yet. So what do we have? Here it is, a soup ladle that Poe used right up until the end of his life. This was at the cottage where he lived in the Bronx, and he probably used it in his previous houses. So now you can imagine sitting down with Poe at the supper table. His mother-in-law, Maria Poe Klim, would have been the one to serve their many guests. And yeah, he had lots of guests, even though at the time he lived about 15 miles outside New York City. You had to take a train to get all the way up there. You really had to go out of your way, but he was having literary and health reformer guests from as far away as Virginia, going all the way up to what's today the Bronx. And they wanted to meet Edgar Allan Poe and spend time with him, engage in conversation with him. And of course, he was a gracious host, and he made sure they were adequately fed and served while they were there. So if you were to visit him, one of the things you would have noticed is he didn't have a pet raven. He actually had to apologize to one of his young visitors for not having the raven that she expected to see. That, in fact, he wasn't dark and gloomy as they expected. The house was sparsely furnished. It was full of flowers. In the springtime, there were flowers blooming all around the outside. So that's not what you expect from the master of the macabre. And if you were to visit his home in Fordham in particular, guests often describe him having to pick up and carry his wife, who was stricken with tuberculosis and within a year of dying. He'd have to carry her and place her at the dinner table. And many of his guests just described her spending most of her time in bed trying to recover, which we know wasn't going to happen. So his mother-in-law is the one who would have served the guest, and she probably served some nice soups with this, or stews, maybe a nice Brunswick stew. And as far as we know of Poe's diet, there's a professor at the University of Virginia, Steve the hair doctor Mako, who's done stable isotope analysis of Poe's hair and said that his diet was mostly grains and potatoes, pork and poultry, nothing too unusual, but a third of his diet was seafood. And Poe probably picked up a taste for seafood growing up here in Richmond, and he still had it at the end of his life, way up in New York. And as for his drinks, we know that they served a lot of tea. Poe liked his tea hot and strong, and he drank a lot of tea and coffee. He wrote about it in one of his letters, but also his guests describing him just really gulping down the tea. So that brings us a little bit closer to what it would have been like to visit Poe at their house. And after he died, his mother-in-law, who was a widow, was just destitute. She had nowhere else to go. He had been her sole source of support. So one of Poe's friends, Annie Richmond, who you'll remember from the previous video, wrote her and said, just sell off everything and move in with me. So she sold off most of her possessions, including this brass soup ladle. And the person who bought it at that sale gave it to her son, W.C. Sands of Virginia, whose widow gave it to the Poe Museum right about the time it opened back in 1922. And it's been here ever since. So if you want the next best thing to having dinner at Edgar Allan Poe's house, be sure to come down here to the museum and see this soup ladle. And it's usually displayed right downstairs from here in the Elizabeth Arnold Poe Memorial Building Susan Jaffe Taine room. But you'll usually see this. But just for you viewers, I'm going to show you the other side. That's what the bottom looks like. Is it everything you hoped it would be? So what do you think? Would you like to see an entire video just about Poe-related spoons? Or let us know what you would ask Poe if you had a chance to have dinner with him. Let us know down in the comments. And if you'd like to help preserve precious Poe pieces, like this soup ladle from Poe's home, why not support the Poe Museum or become a member at poemuseum.org. And until next time, thanks for joining us. And I'll leave you with what you really came to see. More gratuitous footage of the Poe Museum cats doing Poe Museum cat stuff.